empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feeling like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you, 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 won't you let the light shine through? In the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you, 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 afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it out. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out, baby. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it
It's time!
Hello, what is going on, everybody? I hope we are having a good one here this afternoon. Good afternoon to you. We're having a 99% chance of a pause here at this FOMC interest rate decision and press conference. So, gonna have a fun interest rate decision here today. I hope everybody's having a good one right now. Let's go. They're starting to dump. Uh-oh. Let's go over to the SPY. Pulling back quite a bit. Hit around 562 here. Major resistance overhead. I am 100% watching the SPY very closely, of course. I really like the low of the day at 558.50. I have support at 557 from yesterday. There was a little double bottom just under that point. So keep your eyes on 557 as the SPY drops. But of course, that low of day today is going to be pretty influential and crucial. Also, yes, NBS already tanking into the event. Not the best thing to see. We're still 6 minutes out now from the actual interest rate decision itself. But first things first, before we actually get in here, destroy the like button. Let's get that like boosted up today. Hopefully YouTube can help us out a little bit with the Powell stream. I'm going to do a quick poll as well here. Let's see. Before Powell speaks, will the market have a positive or negative reaction to the interest rate decision? I ran out of characters here, so bear with me. It says INT dot rate decision. Let's look at the SPY again. We're on the QQQ. Pretty much the same price action, though, of course. Turn on our stats. All right, voted up before Powell speaks. Will the market have a positive or negative reaction to the interest rate decision? This decision's going to come out in about 5 minutes, so get your votes in quick. Let's go. Get them in fast. Stim's streaming it on their projector while in a work meeting. Let's go. That'll be pretty cool. SPY running down 558.50. Big support on the day. This is going to be crucial to see if we get that higher low to form here. You know, we had a few short-term higher lows here, but as we zoom out, really holding somewhere very close to here would be very influential on the SPY. Looks like we're going to be going right into this decision. Robert says, so you're saying there's a chance. I love that movie. Hilarious. Hilarious. Love it. No matter what happens, it's going to explode, Bonk Cat said. I love it. Hopefully we do. I like your enthusiasm. Hopefully we do. I don't love the way that the SPY looks, though, I must say. Looks kind of brutal here. Looking at the Mag 7 setup. Kind of wild. Let's switch over to our Federal Reserve screen here. Really fast. How do you guys like this? The Federal Reserve screen. Has the little Federal Reserve building down there at the bottom. Little JP up on that. Probably stick on the regular one for now. SPY bouncing around 559. I'm positive the market will either go up or down, Pew Pew said. I love it. Hey, that's how you know you're right. Now watch it just go perfectly flat. That would be funny. It's like SPY halts, news pending. I'm just kidding. I don't think that can happen. Who knows, though? Never say never. All right, we're 2 minutes out. Cut it, Ryan said. You want them to cut rates? 26 votes, get them in. 65% of you guys think it's going to be a negative reaction here. That's a pretty big number. Maybe he won't do anything. Sometimes on these initial decisions, the SPY will just kind of have some crazy candles and then just stay flat. Get ready for a crazy candle, though. Should be coming any moment now. Will count us down here. 30 seconds out. Are they going to hold it at 4.5? 4.25 to 4.5, I should say. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. 2, 1, boom. 1 p.m. Central Time. 2 p.m. Eastern. Here we go. Crazy candles coming through. What you got for us, Trading Economics? Nothing yet. Nothing yet. Watching Thinkorswim. Unchanged. Pause. Surprise, surprise. Exactly what the market expected. A pause. Now we'll need to see what other details come out. so far. Neutral candle. I would say more bullish than bearish, but very neutral. Wicks on both sides. They went with the pause. So this poll is ending now. See what you guys voted for. Voted for an overall negative move with 35 votes. There we go. Let's open up the file here. Although swings in net exports have affected the data, recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. The unemployment rate has stabilized at a low level in recent months. The labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. The committee seeks to achieve maximum employment and inflation at the rate of 2% over the longer run. Uncertainty about the economic outlook has increased further. The committee is attentive to risks on both sides of its dual mandate and judges the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen. Judges that the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen. So they're maintaining, they're pausing. Saying they'll carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook and balance of risks, continue reducing holdings of Treasury securities and agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities. Strongly committed to supporting maximum employment and returning inflation to its 2% objective. In assessing its appropriate stance for monetary policy, the committee will continue to monitor the implications of incoming information for the economic outlook. The committee would be prepared to adjust the stance of monetary policy as appropriate if risks emerge that could impede the attainment of the committee's goals. Let's see. It says that they're going to take into account a wide range of information, including readings on labor market conditions, inflation pressures, and inflation expectations, and financial and international developments. That sounds like a run-on sentence, but who knows? All right. So they paused, and they did say here, which I thought was interesting. This was a big piece right here. The committee is attentive to the risks of both sides of its dual mandate and judges that the risk of higher unemployment, higher inflation have risen. That doesn't sound very good to me. Sounds like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. All right, let's go. Hell yeah, Ryan. There should be 35 likes, guys. Let's go. Get those likes going for JP. Coming out here in 25 minutes. I'll be watching the Fed Watch tool as we go along. We'll see if anything changes here for June or July or even September. For July, I wonder if pause is going to start to come more into the equation rather than cuts. That's really what worries me. If we do see pause come more into the equation, that is something that will start to be a bit negative, I think, on the market, but we'll see. Yeah, SPY's starting to fall over a little bit now. Nothing too bad. I really don't love the overall tone of this Federal Reserve press release. Whenever they say that there's risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen, sounds pretty rough. Gonna be hawkish, Ryan said. Possibly. Here goes SPY. New low of the day. Moving down to 558 right now. New low on the day has been hit. Those of you that voted for negative, excuse me. Wow. Those of you voting for negative are looking pretty good right now. As it breaks under 558. Coming towards 557. There was a double bottom at 557 yesterday, so definitely watch that area very closely as we get towards there. No matter what, it explodes into pieces. UVXY isn't to the high of day yet. We got to be careful with SPY here at this support, but judging that it's an FOMC move, we might get enough volume just to say bye-bye. You know, there could be. We'll see if it bounces or not. But on FOMC days, you know, you can see supports definitely break down more often than not. How's everybody doing today? Trading, though. You guys like that SPY price action today? Little double top action there. Not bad. I'm sure people played it both ways in the chat here, but I wonder which way people leaned. Probably down. AKA tariffs. Wonder how many times Powell's gonna say it, Fraz said. Isaac's on his way to the course for an early day. Oh, there you go, Isaac. That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Hopped in SQQQ. Let's go, Pew Pew said. SPY moving down drastically under 557 right now, guys. Moving towards 556 now. Next support. Next minor support here, 556. This is a pretty big level testing on the SPY. I'll be honest, this is a pretty big level. As you can see, major support around 556 to 558. Gonna be a big level to test here. Gonna take a screenshot. Yeah, this is a big level, though. Big support on the SPY. 556. Those of you out there who are 2A guys, I know you know what 556 is. It'd be funny if SPY was trading for 556 by 45. Powell better have some good news for real, Jake. Pew Pew knows. That press conference is going to be huge coming up in about 20 minutes. We're 20 minutes out. We will have it live. Let's see, let's see. Pretty good bounce so far off 556. Glad to see it. I was posting up the link in the chat here. What are we seeing into this event? I know today we've had a lot of crazy movement. Disney's had an amazing run today. I know that they're starting to kind of slow down now, but overall today, great movement. Amazon had a great run this morning. They slowed up a lot now towards the end of the day. It looks like Open Door is still holding up pretty well. 24.5%. They're still up around their high of the day. Spotify is pretty good, pulling back a bit. We're probably seeing a lot of pullbacks in the very short term. Of course, with the SPY and its weird action. Bouncing around 556 right now. Not really getting a huge bounce going, but, you know, we can definitely tell that support's trying to hold. Yeah. He said 76239. I don't even want to say that one. Definitely a good one, though. 94.80 TGT. Looking at the 1 minute chart, pulling back quite a bit here intraday. Not bad, though, overall in the day. CCJ, Cameco. Nice, up around $50. You know, I haven't looked at CCJ in a few days. Moving very well back to the upside. It's all right, Chase. JP starts in about 17 minutes now. You did miss the big sell-off, though, starting to occur. Big pullback on the SPY. This is a big support, though. 556, as we can see marked here on the chart. Hang on, I gotta go to a 5 minute. Or else it doesn't show. There we go. Pretty good bounce here last week. Not that it's gonna hold it, though. It's just an area where we're seeing some reaction for now. Jerome Powell might come out and switch the entire agenda, and the SPY could end up ripping right back. You never know. I've seen it before. Definitely wouldn't be overly surprised. I feel that when I'm in a trade and my neighbor is talking to me, like, wrap it up, Pew Pew said. That's why I just don't go outside. If you don't go outside, you won't have that problem, I've learned. $556. Testing again, the SPY pulling back right towards it. Let's pull up the Mag 7 chart here. Ooh, Meta starting to break down a bit more. Microsoft pulling back and over as well. Nvidia. starting to see some bad action. Pew Pew said, sometimes you have to touch grass. Only at the golf course, Pew Pew. Then I like to touch the grass, but... I'm just kidding. I go to the park with my daughter and all that stuff. Nvidia really pulling back on the left side here, bottom left. Meta here in the middle right. Pretty massive. I mean, everything's down, but Nvidia just rebroke to new lows of the day. Tesla might attempt as well. Look at Nvidia here, just go. It's not really down that much compared to the past few days, but it's just selling intraday. You seem like the guy that lays down to get a read. How'd you know that? I do that spider. Have you ever seen that guy that does the spider? I think they call him Spider-Man or something. That guy's hilarious. What's my handicap? My handicap right now is 9.9. 9.9. Hopefully I can get it better this year. Some good scores here and there. I shot my best score ever the other day. It was a 72. But I was at a very easy course. I think like par was like 66. So it was like, okay, I shot 72 and I still shot, it's like 6 or 7 over or whatever. 3.1. Damn, Dave, you're good. Yeah. I play like once a week right now. I'm on like that pace. I don't have enough time to do more than once a week at the moment, but Tesla pulling back a lot. 272.50 resistance on Tessie. I'm playing in an amateur tournament this weekend though. I'm playing against other like handicaps that are around 10. Hopefully I can beat them. We're about 12 minutes out from the big man, if you're wondering. 12 minutes. We're counting it down. Tesla is actually looking pretty good here. It's like right at resistance, which was previous support. Hopefully it confirms off of this and dives. That would be a pretty fun move to see. 140 rounds a year. Oh my God. Let's just say that your rounds were all 3 hours. If we did 140 rounds times 3 hours. So that's 420 hours of golf. And let's say they were more like 5 hours a round. 140 times 5. 700 hours. You know, that's not as much as I thought. I thought it was going to be more. Every day at 3 you play? Nice. That's awesome. That sounds like the dream right there. Man, Tesla with this resistance is nuts. Looks like it might try to break up and through, though. SPY's definitely finding a base around that 556 support. It doesn't mean that the base can't break later on, though. We'll see if JP can get it breaking a little bit. My daughter always takes nap time during this, and she can hear me talking right now, and she's angry at me. If you guys hear something, that's what you hear. $556, bouncing back up. All the way back to 558 now, actually. Pretty decent recovery starting. Go check NVIDIA. Starting to bounce a little bit too. Tesla 271. He played in a lot of shit weather. Oh gosh. Yeah, you're right. I guess I didn't think about that. If you play that often, you're gonna be in some bad weather, that's for sure. Yeah, oh, snow? I don't even know how you could play in snow. Ah, that's brutal. I've played in snow like one time, and it was like the worst thing I ever did. QQQ, 480 resistance overhead. 479.50 has seen a lot of action as well. We have to watch these resistances carefully on SPY and QQQ as they start to run. Like we can see, SPY's kind of reacting here at this first one. We'll see how it does on this little pullback. It'll probably be a slight one, and then probably another attempt at recovery like this. Zombie assault. It's delivering a load in upstate New York right now. Scared of what Powell's gonna say. I'm a little bit worried that he talks about tariff uncertainty and maybe needing to keep rates steady for longer. We'll see though what happens. Maybe he'll talk about tariffs potentially making inflation go out of control, and then it might force him to cut. It's very hard to say here. It's weird because they have the dynamic of jobs and inflation. So if, like, let's say unemployment gets really bad, but then inflation gets really bad, they're kind of stuck. It's like, okay, well, which one do you target then, right? It's tough for them with that dual mandate. I expect him to talk a lot about that dual mandate here. He might stick it to Trump. I was almost going to do a funny thumbnail where I had Powell saying something bad to Trump or something, but I couldn't get it to look how I wanted to. Yeah, exactly, Sean. I want to hear the unemployment risks here. The thumbnail that never was. Yep. There's always a few of those. Oh, hell yeah. Chase is doing a smoke on his ribs tonight till the live Q&A starts. For those of you that don't know, Trading Floor members get access to Wednesday night live Q&As where you can join up and ask Mike literally anything that you want and go over any strategy or anything like that. If you're interested, I'm sending a link in the chat. It's for Trading Floor members only. If you sign up before the event tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, I will make sure that you get access. Make sure you check your emails upon signing up, of course. Use code BIGMONEY for $100 off the yearly. Great deal right now. Code BIGMONEY will save you on the yearly. But hell yeah, join up. Let's get some awesome strategies going tonight. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk about these rates and everything as well. And hey, if you're in here, destroy that like button. Going live for Powell today. Let's get those likes going. If not, you know who I'm sending over.
How dare you?
If you know, you know. All right, guys. You know what time it is. I think that we know about what time it is here. Are we ready? The SPY's down. We're down in the red. There's been a lot of selling pressure heading into Jerome Powell's speech. I think we need a hero here, baby. I love this part. A tradition like none other. All right. Let's get the big man up here. He could be starting any minute right now. He could start any moment. Let's get it. The tradition lives on, at least for now. Here we go. All right, JP. Got the SPY side by side with Jerome. Might as well just mute the music now because JP should be coming on any second. And remember, I will boost the sound if anything is messed up. So let me know if it's messed up for you guys and I will fix it. But I should normally get it pretty good. I can tell normally if it's good or bad. All right, let's go. Like it up for JP.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite heightened uncertainty, the economy is still in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Pardon me. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down in the first quarter, reflecting swings in net exports that were likely driven by businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs. This unusual swing complicated GDP measurement last quarter. Private domestic final purchases, or PDFP, which excludes net exports, inventory investment, and government spending, grew at a solid 3% rate in the first quarter, the same as last year's pace. Within PDFP, growth of consumer spending moderated, while investment in equipment and intangibles rebounded from weakness in the fourth quarter. Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the economic outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. In the labor market, conditions have remained solid. Payroll job gains averaged 155,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate at 4.2% remains low and has stayed in a narrow range for the past year. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance and consistent with maximum employment. The labor market is not a source of significant inflationary pressures. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer run goal. Total PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.6%. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Survey respondents, including consumers, businesses, and professional forecasters, point to tariffs as the driving factor. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of the balance sheet. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. The tariff increases announced so far have been significantly larger than anticipated. All of these policies are still evolving, however, and their effects on the economy remain highly uncertain. As economic conditions evolve, we'll continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the outlook, and the balance of risks. If the large increases in tariffs that have been announced are sustained, they're likely to generate a rise in inflation, a slowdown in economic growth, and an increase in unemployment. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we'll balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal, and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. For the time being, we're well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. At this meeting, the committee continued its discussions as part of our 5-year review of our monetary policy framework. We focused on inflation dynamics and the implications for our monetary policy strategy. Our review includes outreach and public events involving a wide range of parties, including Fed Listens events around the country and a research conference next week. Throughout this process, we're open to new ideas and critical feedback, and we will take on board lessons of the last 5 years in determining our findings. We intend to wrap up the review by late summer. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking my question. A lot has happened since the last meeting. There's been tariffs put on, tariffs taken off, and meanwhile, there's a bill advancing in Congress. And I just wonder if I could press you on the last part of your statement. Are you any closer now to deciding which side of the mandate is going to need urgent care first?
Well, so as we noted in our statement, post-meeting statement, we've judged that the risks to higher employment and higher inflation have both risen. And this, by the way, of course, is compared to March. So that's what we can say. I don't think we can say, which way this will shake out. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty about, for example, where tariff policies are going to settle out. And also, when they do settle out, what will be the implications for the economy, for growth, and for employment? I think it's too early to know that. So, I mean, ultimately, we think our policy rate is in a good place to stay as we await further clarity on tariffs and ultimately their implications for the economy.
Hearing you describe what you're looking for in terms of being able to make a decision, it sounded like that's a long-term process before you sound like you're going to be comfortable, or the committee would be comfortable to act on what the data is telling you.
I don't think we know. I think, if you look at where we are today, we have an economy that, if you look through, the sort of distortions in Q1 GDP, you've still got an economy that looks like it's growing at a solid pace. The labor market appears to be solid. Inflation is running just a bit above 2%. So it's an economy that's been resilient and is in good shape. And our policy is sort of modestly or moderately restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was last fall. And so we think that leaves us in a good place to wait and see. We don't think we need to be in a hurry. We think we can be patient. We're going to be watching the data. The data may move quickly or slowly, but we do think we're in a good position where we are to let things evolve and become clearer in terms of what should be the monetary policy response.
Nick.
Nick Timrose, the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, there's naturally a lot of EST around 2021 and supply shocks, but there are some who argue that the current situation has notable differences. Energy costs are down, housing imbalances look nothing like they did 4 years ago, labor demand appears to be gradually cooling with wage growth running below 4%. What do you see right now that could nourish higher inflation beyond a rise in goods prices this year?
I think the underlying inflation picture is good. It's what you see, which is inflation now running a bit above 2%. And we've had basically decent readings in housing services and non-housing services, which is a big part of it. So that part, I think, is moving along well. But there's just so much that we don't know. I think, and we're in a good position to wait and see, is the thing. We don't have to be in a hurry. The economy has been resilient and is doing fairly well. Our policy is well positioned. The costs of waiting to see further are fairly low, we think. So that's what we're doing. And, we'll see. The administration is entering into negotiations with many countries over tariffs. We'll know more with each week and month that goes by where tariffs are going to land, and we'll know what the effects will be when we start to see those things. So we think we'll be learning. I can't tell you how long it will take, but for now it does seem like it's a fairly clear decision for us to wait and see and watch.
So when you say that you don't need to be in a hurry, does that mean that could the outlook change in such a way that a change in your stance could be warranted as soon as your next meeting?
As I said, we are comfortable with our policy stance. We think we're in the right place to wait and see how things evolve. We don't feel like we need to be in a hurry. We feel like it's appropriate to be patient. And when things develop, of course, we have a record of we can move quickly when that's appropriate. But we think right now the appropriate thing to do is to wait and see how things evolve. There's so much uncertainty. If you talk to businesses or market participants or forecasters, everyone is just waiting to see how developments play out, and then we'll be able to make a better assessment of what the appropriate path for monetary policy is. So we're not in that place, and as that develops. And I can't really give you a time frame on that.
Janelle Marte with Bloomberg. So many economists have been pricing in higher odds of a recession, and several are noting that it is more difficult for the Fed to cut rates preemptively given the higher risks for higher inflation. So given the outlook, do you still see a path for a soft landing, and what does that look like?
Well, let me say, so let's look back and see where we are. So to go through 2024 up to the day, we've had unemployment in the low 4s for more than a year. We've had inflation coming down now in the mid to low 2s. We've had an economy growing at 2.5%. So that is the economy as we see it now. What looks likely, given the scope and scale of the tariffs, is that we will see certainly the risks to higher inflation, higher unemployment have increased. And if that's what we do see, if the tariffs are ultimately put in place at those levels, which we don't know, then we won't see further progress toward our goals. But we might see a delay in that. I think in our thinking, we never do anything but keep achieving those goals. But we would, at least for the next, let's say, year, we would not be making progress toward those goals. Again, if that's the way the tariffs shake out. The thing is, we don't know that. There's so much uncertainty about the scale, scope, timing, and persistence of the tariffs. So that's that. In terms of preemption, I think you can look back at the 2019 cuts as preemptive. I wouldn't say that what we did last fall was at all preemptive. If anything, it was a little late. But 2019, we did cut 3 times. But the situation was you had a weakening economy and you had inflation at 1.6%. So that's a situation where you can move preemptively. Now we have inflation running above target. It has been above target for 4 years. It's not so far above target now. And we have an expectation, conditional on what happens, that we'll see upward pressure on inflation. If you look at where forecasters are, they're all forecasting an increase in inflation. So it makes it, and then we've also got forecasts of weakening in the economy, and some have recession forecasts. We don't publish a forecast about that. We don't publish a forecast that assesses how likely a recession is. But in any case, it's not a situation where we can be preemptive because we actually don't know what the right response to the data will be until we see more data.
Colby Smith with the New York Times. How much weakness does the committee need to see, though, in the labor market and the economy more broadly to lower interest rates again? Is it about a certain increase in the unemployment rate over a period of time, or perhaps a certain number of negative monthly job reports? I mean, how are you making that assessment?
So first of all, we don't see that yet, right? We have 4.2% unemployment, good participation, wages behaving very well. participation, I mentioned, at a good level. So, with the labor market, we would look at the totality of the data. We'd look at the level of the unemployment rate. We'd look at the speed with which it's changing. We would look at the whole huge array of labor market data to get a sense of whether conditions are really deteriorating or not. And at the same time, we'd be looking at the other side of the mandate. We could be in a position of having to balance those two things, which is, of course, a difficult balancing judgment that we'd have to make.
On that point about balancing, I mean, you've mentioned that the committee would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the time it would take to kind of get back to that point. But what does that mean in practice? I mean, how much of that assessment will be rooted in a forecast versus data dependence?
It would be a combination of the two. I mean, let's just say this would be a complicated and challenging judgment that we would have to make. Yeah, we're not in this situation, but the situation is if the two goals are in tension, so let's say that unemployment is moving up in an uncomfortable way, and so is inflation. Not the situation we're in, hypothetically, but we would look at how far they are from the goals, how far they're expected to be from the goals, what's the expected time to get back to their goals. We'd look at all those things and make a difficult judgment, and that's in our framework. It's always been in our thinking. We haven't faced that question in a very long time. So, again, difficult judgment to make, and not one that we face today, and we may never face it, but we have to be keeping it in our thinking now.
Edward.
Thank you. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So we had the CPI report that came out that showed month over month the first decrease in inflation in about 3 years. The jobs report, you said, solid, that we saw. At the same time, we have those new tariffs that we're living under. So given this, should the Federal Reserve be cutting rates at all this year?
It's going to depend. I think you have to just take a step back and realize this is why we are where we are. Is we're going to need to see how this evolves. There are cases in which it would be appropriate for us to cut rates this year. There are cases in which it wouldn't, and we just don't know until we know more about how this is going to settle out and what the economic implications are for employment, for inflation. I couldn't confidently say that I know what the appropriate path will be.
So following on that, so then how does President Trump calling on you personally, as well as the Federal Reserve, to make rate cuts affect your decision today and affect your job difficulty?
Doesn't affect our doing our job at all. So we're always going to do the same thing, which is we're going to use our tools to foster maximum employment and price stability for the benefit of the American people. We're always going to consider only the economic data, the outlook, the balance of risks, and that's it. That's all we're going to consider. So it really doesn't affect either our job or the way we do it.
Howard.
Hi, Howard Schneider with Reuters, and thanks for the time. I'm wondering, I mean, given the complexity about the first quarter GDP and what lies ahead, I'm just wondering what your intuition tells you about the underlying direction of the economy right now. Many of your colleagues have said they feel growth is slowing. If so, do you have any sense of by how much, to what degree the slowdown may be? What does your gut tell you about how things are evolving out there?
My gut tells me that uncertainty about the path of the economy is extremely elevated, and that the downside risks have increased. The risk is, as we pointed out in our statement, the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen. But they haven't materialized yet. They really have. They're not in the data yet. So that tells me more than by intuition, because I think it's obvious actually that the right thing for us to do is we're in a good place. Our policy's in a very good place, and the right thing to do is await further clarity. And there's usually things clarify and the appropriate direction becomes clear. That's what usually happens. Right now, it's very hard to say what that would be. In the meantime, the economy is doing fine. Our policy isn't, it's not highly restrictive. It's somewhat restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was in, last summer. So we think it's in a good place, and we think the appropriate thing is for us to wait and see and get more clarity about the direction of the economy.
Well, let me press you on this idea of the economy being fine right now, because reading the Beige Book very closely the last time around, there was a lot of negative stuff, negative sentiment that was in there. And I know that everybody's looking at soft data right now. You mentioned it yourself that the sentiment's sour. But the Beige Book was talking about, the beginnings of layoffs in some industries, prices rising in some places, and an awful lot of investment decisions being pushed to the sideline. Doesn't that point to a slowdown?
It may well. It just hasn't shown up yet. And we all look at all these sentiment and read many individual comments just to get a better feel. And businesses and households very broadly are concerned and postponing economic decisions of various kinds. And yes, if that continues and nothing happens to sort of alleviate those concerns, then you would expect that to begin to show up in economic data. It wouldn't maybe show up overnight, but it would show up over weeks and months. And that may be what happens, but it hadn't happened yet. And also there are things that can happen that will change that narrative. I mean, they haven't happened, but it's possible to imagine things that, but in the meantime, yes, we're watching it extremely carefully like everyone is, but don't see really much evidence of it in actual economic data yet. And by the way, consumers keep spending, credit card spending. It's, it's still a healthy economy, albeit one that is shrouded in some very downbeat sentiment on the part of people and businesses.
Michael McKee.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. The Fed's been criticized recently by a former governor for what he calls mission creep. You take on more problems, use more tools, and then end up building tools to deal with the fallout of those tools, which then makes it a given that you will act more aggressively in the future. Is that a fair critique, and is that something you would be looking at in your framework review?
Sorry, say the critique again.
That the Fed has been involved in mission creep, gets involved in using too many new tools to deal with problems and to go too far. Is that something that the critique was based around the fact that you did QE and QE and QE and went beyond the narrow confines of your mandate?
So, well, I mean, there are a couple. That's not really beyond the confines of our mandate. Look, I would say this: we did things. Essentially, we're on an emergency footing for a couple of years in the pandemic, and it's very fair and very welcome for people to look back over what we did and say, hey, you could have done this better and different. And one thing we hear a lot is we could have explained QE a little better. We did think we were explaining it in real time. I completely accept the thought that we could have explained it better. There's a lot of thinking that we went on too long with QE. I can tell you that the reason we did was we were concerned that we didn't want a sharp tightening in financial conditions at a time when we thought the economy was still vulnerable. And so we did hold on for a long time to QE, and we, of course, tapered and everything. And then we immediately went into QT, and, we're down a couple of trillion. But I get we certainly, with the benefit of hindsight, could have tapered earlier or faster. That's absolutely right. But this is all very welcome. We knew doing this in real time that we weren't going to get it perfect, and those kind of after action kind of looks are essential. And we're doing the same thing in our review. So on some issues.
The other part of that critique is that you've taken on topics that are outside of the mandate, such as climate change and trying to ensure that certain groups are benefited by your economic policies in terms of employment, et cetera.
So, okay, on climate, you've heard me say over and over again that we will not be climate policymakers, and that our role on climate is a very, very narrow one. And I think that's what we've done. We've done really very little on climate. You can say that little bit that we've done was too much, but I wouldn't want to give any impression that we've taken climate and it's something that we're spending a lot of time and energy on. We're not. We have very, very narrow things. We did one thing, one guidance for the banks, and then we did a one-time stress analysis, climate stress analysis, and that's it. And we dropped out of the network for greening the financial system. So we didn't do much on climate, but I do think, and I've said this publicly several times, I think it's a real danger for us to try to take on a mandate like that, which is very narrow application to our work. And the risk is if you go for things that are really not on your mandate, then why are you independent? And I think that's a very fair question. I do think we've done a whole lot less on climate than some people seem to think we did. Anyway, that's what I think.
Should you have taken on the question of bringing unemployment rates down for specific categories?
We didn't do that. What we said was that we never targeted any unemployment rate for individual racial or demographic groups. What we said was that maximum employment was a broad and inclusive goal. And I think what we meant by that was we're going to consider the totality of the country as we look at our maximum employment goal. Of course, we were never going to target any individual group with that, but I think some people, wanted to hear it that way. But that's not at all what we meant. So that's just not a correct reading of our. But I can see how maybe people found that confusing, and we have to take that into consideration.
Jolene.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking our questions today. I'm Jolene Kent with CBS News. You've said wait and see, and the economy is doing fine today, but the impact of tariffs are already showing up at the ports. Businesses, big and small, are telling us that they feel it, and most importantly, consumers say they feel it, that the challenges are here, and there's no waiting and seeing. For Main Street, what is the breaking point? What would have to happen to prompt a rate cut specifically?
Well, so we really don't see in the data yet big economic effects. We see sentiment, there are concerns that higher prices may be coming or things like that. So they're worried now about inflation. They're worried about the, a shock from the tariffs, but they really haven't. That shock hasn't hit yet. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the not just the sentiment data, but also the real economic data as we assess what it is we should do. And remember, there will be two effects. One of them would be weakening economic activity, which translates into higher unemployment, and the other would be potentially higher inflation. Again, to say it again, the timing, the scope, the scale, and the persistence of those effects are very, very uncertain. So it's not at all clear what the appropriate response for monetary policy is at this time. And and by the way, our policy is in a good place, so we think we can wait and move when it is clear what the right thing to do is. Really not at all clear what it is we should do. So people are feeling stress and concern, but unemployment hasn't gone up. Job creation is fine. Wages are in good shape. People are not layoffs, or people are not getting laid off at high levels. Initial claims for unemployment are not increasing, in any kind of impressive way. So the economy itself is still, in solid shape.
Just a quick follow-up. President Trump now says he does not plan to remove you as chair. When you heard that, what did you think?
I don't have anything more for you on that. I've pretty much covered that issue. Thank you.
Chris.
Hi, thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press. Well, I just wanted to follow up. Earlier, it sounded like you said it was unclear how the Fed, what kind of interest rate decisions you will make later this year. So does that, in March, there was guidance that 2 cuts might happen. 2 cuts were penciled in for this year. Is that now, that guidance from the last press conference, has that been overtaken by events at this point?
We don't do a summary of economic projections at every meeting, as you know. We do it every other meeting, and so this was the meeting when we didn't do it. And we don't also kind of poll people, so I really wouldn't want to try to make a specific projection for where we are relative to that. We will, in 6 weeks, we had the June meeting, and you'll have another SEP. I'm not going to hazard a guess here today as to what it would be. Again, what I would say is that we think our policy rate is in a good place. We think it leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential developments. That's where we are. And that, depending on the way things play out, that could include rate cuts. It could include us holding where we are. We just are going to need to see, how things play out before we make those decisions.
Great. And just to follow up on that, I mean, when you address the issue of how the Fed would handle both rising unemployment and rising inflation, how are you thinking about the fact that addressing one could exacerbate the other? So a rate cut to reduce unemployment could worsen inflation and vice versa. How do you handle those challenges?
You just captured this is the issue with the two goals being in tension. It's a very challenging question. Now, there can be a case in which one goal is very far, one variable is very, very far from its goal, much farther than the other, and if so, you concentrate on that one. And frankly, that was the case. Well, it wasn't a case where they were really in tension, but if you go back to 2022, it was very clear that we needed to focus on inflation. The labor market was also super tight, so it wasn't really a trade-off. I think what our framework document says. It says we'll look at how far each variable is from its goal, and also we'll factor in the time it would take to get there. So, that's going to be potentially a very difficult judgment, but the data could break in a way that it's not. I just don't think we know that. The data could easily favor one or the other, and right now there's no need to make a choice, and no real basis for doing so.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. I wanted to ask, Congress is currently debating spending cuts alongside extending the tax cuts. And I know you've talked many times about how the path of the debt is unsustainable, but given that we're also talking right now about the economy slowing, potentially even recession, I was just wondering, is there a danger that spending cuts now could slow growth a lot more?
We don't give Congress fiscal advice. We take what they do as a given, and we put it in our models and in our assessment of the economy. So I wouldn't want to, speculate on that. I mean, I think we do know that the debt is on an unsustainable level, on an unsustainable path, not at an unsustainable level, but an unsustainable path. And it's on Congress to figure out how to get us back on a sustainable path. And it's not up to us to give them advice.
Well, do you think that they should take macroeconomic conditions into account as they look at this?
I think they don't need my advice and our advice on how to do fiscal policy any more than we need their advice on monetary policy.
Andrew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Ackerman with the Washington Post. In your Jackson Hole comments last year, you said you would not welcome further cooling in labor market conditions. The unemployment rate then was 4.2%, which is what it is now. Many forecasters now predict a higher jobless rate. How has your tolerance for weakening labor market conditions changed compared to a year ago?
So it was quite a different situation. What was happening last year is that over the space of 6, 8, 7 months, the unemployment rate went up by almost a full percentage point. And it was click, 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 click each month. And everywhere people were talking about downside risks to the labor market. At the same time, payroll job numbers were getting softer and softer. So there was a really obvious concern about downside risk to the labor market. And so at Jackson Hole and then in September, we wanted to address that forthrightly. We wanted to show that we were there we'd been there for inflation for a couple of years, and we wanted to show also that we're there for the labor market. And it was important that we send that signal. Fortunately, since then, the labor market has really, and the unemployment rate have really been moving sideways at a level that is, well in the range of mainstream estimates of maximum employment. So that concern has gotten a lot less. So, you're at 4.2% unemployment. I think we were in a very different situation. Now we have a situation where, the risks to higher inflation and higher unemployment have both gone up, as we noted in our statement, and we've got to monitor both of those. We actually have a potential situation where there may be a trade-off or tension between the two, potentially. We don't have it yet, and we may not have it, but that's what we have, and that's why I think it's a very different situation.
I guess I want to follow up by asking how much of a rise in the jobless rate you could tolerate.
I can't give you I'm not going to try to give you a specific number. I'll just say we have to now be looking at both variables and which of them is demanding. If one of them is demanding our focus more than the other, that would tell us what to do with policy. If they're more or less equally distant and equally or not distant, then we don't have to make that assessment. The assessment is you wait. So I'm not going to try to be really specific about what we need to see in terms of a number. But if we did see significant deterioration in the labor market, of course that's one of our two variables, and we would look to be able to support that. You'd hope that it wasn't also coming at a time when inflation was getting very bad. And again, we're speculating here. We don't know this. We don't know any of these things. It's very hypothetical. We're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out.
Thanks.
Claire.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. In terms of getting some clarity, we've got some talks at the weekend in Geneva between the US and China. A lot of economists are attaching an awful lot of importance to what we hear from those talks. How much importance are you attaching to them in terms of judging what will happen to the US economy going forward? And just in a similar vein, some economists are saying it's days, not weeks, that we have until we start to put the US economy at risk of seeing the sort of pandemic-era shortages and higher prices if we don't kind of soothe relations between the US and China. So it'd be good to have your view on that too.
So, these are not talks that we're in any way involved in, so I really can't comment directly on them. But what I will say is this, we had, coming out of the March meeting, the public generally had an assessment of where tariffs were going, and then April 2 happened, and it was really substantially larger than anticipated in the forecasts that I had seen and in our forecasts. So, and now we have we're in a new phase where it seems to be we're entering a new phase where the administration is beginning talks with a number of our important trading partners, and that has the potential to change the picture materially or not. And so I think it's going to be very important how that shakes out. But we simply have to wait and see how it works out. It certainly could change the picture, and we're mindful of not trying to make conclusive judgments about what will happen at a time when the facts are changing.
And just on the fall in shipping volumes from China over these tensions, do you share that concern that we could start seeing goods shortages and higher prices in the coming weeks if this isn't resolved very quickly?
I don't want to get we shouldn't be involved even verbally in the questions about the timing of these things. Yes, of course we follow all that data. We see the shipping data, we see all that, but ultimately this is for the administration to do. This is their mandate, not ours. And I know as you can see, they're again beginning to have talks with many nations, and that has the potential to change the picture materially. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Kosuke Takami with Nikkei. Thank you for doing this. The volume of imported goods increased significantly in the first quarter. Do you think that this situation could cause a delay in the impact of tariff on inflation? And does this mean that it will take longer time to reduce uncertainty?
The decision we made today? Which decision?
So the future decisions. So the volume of the imported goods has increased significantly. So the impact on the imported inflation may delay. So what is the impact to your future decision?
Okay, so I think we think that there was a big spike in imports, right? Very big, historically large, really, and to beat tariffs. And now that should actually reverse, so that it's the difference between it's exports minus imports. So and imports were huge, and so that it conveyed a very negative contribution to U.S. GDP, annualized GDP in the first quarter, as we all know. So that could, in the second quarter, be reversed so that we have, an unusually large contribution to usually positive. That's very likely as imports drop sharply. You could also have, very likely you'll have restatements of first quarter. It'll turn out that consumer spending was higher. It'll turn out that inventories were higher, and so you'll see those data revised up. It may actually go into the third quarter too, and so I think this whole process is going to a little bit make it harder to make a clean assessment of U.S. demand. I mentioned private domestic final purchases, which doesn't have inventories, government, or inventories, government. Anyway, it's a cleaner read on private demand, but that too probably was flattered a little bit by by strong demand for imports to beat tariffs. So that might overstate. It's a really good reading, 3% PDFP in the first quarter. That might actually overstate. So it's not really going to, I don't think it's going to affect our decisions. I will just say, though, that it's a little confusing, and it's probably less confusing to us than it would be to the general public as we try to explain this. It's complicated, and GDP is sending a signal, PDFP is sending a signal. It's a little bit confusing, but I think we understand what's going on. It's not really going to change things for us.
Courtney.
Courtney Brown from Axios. I guess, we talked about some of the indications of potential layoffs, price hikes, an economic slowdown, all being evident in the soft data. I'm curious why the Fed needs to wait for that to translate into hard data to, make any type of monetary policy decision, especially if the hard data is not as timely or might be warped by tariff-related effects. Are you worried that the soft data might be some sort of false warning?
No, I mean, look at the state of the economies. The labor market is solid, inflation is low. We can afford to be patient as things unfold. There's no real cost to our waiting at this point. Also, the sense of it is, we're not sure what the right thing will be. There should be some increase in inflation. There should be some increase in unemployment. Those call for different responses. And so until we know, potentially call for different responses. And so, until we know more, we have the ability to wait and see. And it seems to be a pretty clear decision. Everyone on the committee supported waiting. And so that's why we're waiting.
Just a very quick follow-up. There was this sort of vibe session, if you will, where the sentiments expressed in soft data did not translate into the hard economic data. How are you thinking about that when interpreting some of the signs in the softer survey data?
I think going back a number of years, the link between sentiment data and consumer spending has been weak. It's not been a strong link at all. On the other hand, we haven't had a move of this, speed and size. So it wouldn't be the case that we're looking at this and just completely dismissing it. But it's another reason to wait and see. You're right, though. We had a couple of years during the pandemic where people were saying just very downbeat surveys and going out and spending money. So that can happen, and that may happen to some degree here. We just don't know. This is an outsized change in sentiment, though, and so none of us is looking at this and saying that we're sure one way or the other. We're not.
Matt.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Matt Egan with CNN. So you mentioned earlier that you were monitoring the shipping data, and we have seen in the shipping data that imports from China into the Port of Los Angeles have plunged, and that has raised concerns about potential shortages. What tools, if any, does the Fed have to ensure that prices and inflation expectations don't get out of hand if tariffs do cause significant supply chain disruptions?
I mean, we don't have, the kind of tools that are good at dealing with supply chain problems. We don't have that at all. That's a job for the administration and for the private sector more than anything. what we can do with our interest rate tool is we can be more or less supportive of demand, and that'd be a very inefficient way to try to fix supply chain problems. But we don't see the inflation yet. We're of course reading the same stories and watching the same data as everybody else, and right now we see inflation kind of moving sideways at a fairly low level.
If I could follow up on that, President Trump has indicated that he will likely name a replacement for you when your term as chair expires next year. But your position on the board runs through January 2028, I believe. Would you consider remaining on the Fed board even if you're no longer chair?
So I don't have anything for you on that. My whole focus is on, and my colleagues' focus is all on, trying to navigate this tricky passage we're in right now, trying to make the right decisions. We want to make the best decisions for the people that we serve. That's what we think about day and night, and this is a challenging situation, and that's 100% of our focus right now.
Let's go to Jennifer for the last question.
Thank you so much, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. Public records of your schedule so far this year show no meetings with President Trump. Past presidents Obama, Bush, and Clinton have all met with Fed chairs, and you met with Trump during his first term. Why haven't you asked for a meeting yet with the president?
I've never asked for a meeting with any president, and I never will. It's not, I wouldn't do that. There's never a reason for me to ask for a meeting. It's always been the other way.
So would you want to meet with him if given the opportunity to get more information?
It's never an initiative that I take. It's always an initiative. I don't think it's up to a Fed chair to seek a meeting with the president, although maybe some have done so. I've never done so, and I can't imagine myself doing that. I think it's always comes the other way. A president wants to meet with you, but that hasn't happened.
And if I could just ask one question on monetary policy. When it is time to cut rates, how will you determine how far down rates will have to come to try to keep a balance on the inflation mandate as employment weakens?
I think once you have a clear direction, you can make a judgment about how fast to move and that kind of thing. So it's really the harder question is the timing, I think, and when will that become clear? And fortunately, as I mentioned, we have our policy in a good place, the economy's in a good place, and it's really appropriate, we think, for us to be patient and wait for things to unfold as we get more clarity about what we should do. Thanks very much.
All right. There we go. JP is done. He's walking off the stage. All right. How is everybody doing here this afternoon? I hope we're all having a good one. Wow, the market ended up coming back a little bit. Jerome Powell put on his cape and his mask, and we got the hero effect coming into play here. Pretty awesome with Jerome. We're seeing the SPY try to hold its ground now. It still hasn't really broken above key resistance on the day, though, close to 562. So definitely keep that in mind. That's going to be something that you need to keep your eye on for sure. But how's everybody thinking with the market here? SPY is starting to pull back a little bit, kind of rejecting. We're still above support, but at the same time, we're below resistance. So a whole lot of nothing. Whoever voted for neutral on the post earlier, or on the poll, probably ended up winning. That's pretty funny. Whoever voted neutral won. There was only 14% of you guys that voted neutral on that very first poll. So pretty hilarious there. Let's run through a few of these big stocks here to end the day. I know Disney has had quite the day. They're starting to come back a little bit here up into close. Keep them on the radar. That's going to be a big one for tomorrow. Up above $100. Definitely a fun one. I'm watching Tesla here as they try to bounce a little bit around 270 to 272. It's going to be big if they can break back above this 276 resistance. I think that being patient and waiting for a breakout opportunity above there could be pretty advantageous towards the end of the day today. We only have about 40 minutes left here of Power Hour, though. Robert voted neutral. Hey, there you go. AK never doubted it in their mind. But they did on their vote, probably. No, I'm joking. I can't tell who voted, by the way, so. Chase voted red. That's funny. 276 though. Big level here on Tesla. We got to get above there. Hopefully by tomorrow morning we're nice and above that with a little breakout action coming into play. Tempest has been roaring back. They actually ripped up here during that, running up to new recent highs, or highs today anyways. $59. But all right, guys, I got to run. Got to get going on tonight's video. I hope to see you there. If you're watching right now, leave a comment on tonight's video and say hashtag livestream gang or something like that. Say coming from the Stocked Up Live. That'll be pretty cool. Let's flood it up. Maybe you guys can overpower all those stupid bots that go in the comments. Maybe you guys can outflood them when the video comes out tonight. That's pretty funny. It's funny. We got to like literally sit there and like watch it like a hawk and delete them. All right, guys, have a great one. I will talk to you tomorrow.